My name is Alex, and I never thought my life would take the turns it has. I married Emma 3 years ago, a decision that brought joy and stability. Emma is beautiful, intelligent, and caring. Everything I could have asked for in a partner. Our life together has been comfortable, but there's something deeper that I hadn't realized was missing until I met her mother, Clara. Clara is a striking woman in her mid-50s, with a grace and poise that could rival women half her age. From the moment I met her, I felt an inexplicable connection. It was as if she understood me in ways no one else could. We both share a passion for books, spending countless hours discussing our favorite authors, genres, and stories. These conversations created a bond that seemed innocent at first, but slowly something more intense began to simmer beneath the surface. One evening, Emma was away on a business trip, and Clara invited me over for dinner. The invitation seemed harmless enough. After all, we were family, and I enjoyed her company. The dinner was delightful, with Clara preparing a delicious meal and our conversation flowing effortlessly. Afterward, we moved to the living room, where she poured us glasses of wine, and we continued our discussion about a book we were both reading. As the night progressed, the atmosphere grew more intimate. The soft lighting, the wine, and the warmth of the fire created a cocoon of comfort and closeness. Clara leaned in closer, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames, and I could feel my pulse quicken. Our hands brushed against each other as we reached for our glasses, and the electricity between us was undeniable. "Alex," she said softly, her voice a hushed whisper, "I feel like we understand each other in a way that's rare. Do you feel it too?" I nodded, unable to find the right words to express the emotions swirling inside me. The air was thick with unspoken desire, and I knew we were crossing a line that would change everything. Yet I couldn't bring myself to step back. Instead, I leaned in, closing the distance between us, and kissed her. The kiss was gentle at first, a tentative exploration of the passion that had been building between us, but it quickly deepened, becoming more urgent and demanding. Clara responded with equal fervor, her hands tangling in my hair as she pulled me closer. The taste of wine on her lips, the softness of her skin, and the sheer thrill of the forbidden made my head spin. We pulled back, breathless, our eyes locked in a silent agreement. This was wrong, but it felt so incredibly right. Clara smiled, a mixture of guilt and excitement in her eyes, and I knew we were embarking on a dangerous journey. But at that moment, all I could think about was the intense connection we shared and the irresistible pull drawing us together. The rest of the evening was a blur of stolen kisses and whispered confessions. We knew we had to be careful, that the consequences of our actions could be devastating. But the desire was too strong to resist. As I left her house that night, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. I was torn between my love for Emma and the undeniable attraction I felt for Clara. The following days were a whirlwind of guilt and longing. I avoided Clara, fearing that any contact would only fuel the fire that had ignited between us. Yet, every time I saw her, the desire flared up anew, an insatiable hunger that couldn't be ignored. We exchanged knowing glances, our secret weighing heavily on us. Emma remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I loved her truly, but the connection I had with Clara was something different, something primal and consuming. It wasn't just about the physical attraction, it was the intellectual and emotional bond we shared, the way we could lose ourselves in conversation for hours on end. One evening, I found myself alone in the library, a place that had always been a sanctuary for me. I was lost in thought, grappling with the turmoil inside me, when Clara walked in. She closed the door behind her, the click of the latch echoing in the silent room. "Alex," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. She walked over to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and fear. "I can't stop thinking about you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. What we're feeling, it's dangerous, but I can't ignore it." I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "I feel the same way, Clara. But what do we do? How do we handle this?" She took a deep breath, her eyes searching mine. "We have to be careful, Alex. We can't let this ruin our lives. But maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to be together, even if it's just for a little while." The weight of her words hung in the air, and I knew there was no turning back. We were standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. The consequences were terrifying, but the pull of our desire was impossible to resist. As Clara and I stood there, Our hands intertwined, I realized that this was just the beginning of a story that would change our lives forever. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and heartache, but the connection we shared was too powerful to ignore. We had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Days passed since that night in the library, and my mind was a whirlwind of confusion and desire. I tried to bury myself in work and keep my distance from Clara, but every thought circled back to her. Each time I saw her, even briefly, the intensity of our connection flared up, threatening to consume me. Emma remained unaware, her usual warmth and affection only adding to my guilt. It was a sunny afternoon when Clara and I found ourselves alone again. Emma had gone to visit a friend, leaving me to handle some chores around the house. Clara came over under the pretext of helping, but it was clear that our reasons for being alone together had little to do with errands. As soon as Emma left, the air seemed to thicken with unspoken tension. We were in the garden trimming the roses when Clara spoke. "Alex, we need to talk about what happened." I put down the clippers and turned to face her. Her eyes were filled with that same mix of fear and longing. "I know," I said softly. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about it." Clara moved closer, her fingers brushing against mine as she handed me a rose. "Neither have I. This attraction between us, it's more than just a fleeting thing. I feel it in my bones." Her words echoed my own thoughts, and the intensity of her gaze made my pulse quicken. Without thinking, I reached out and cupped her face in my hands, pulling her in for a kiss. It was as if all the pent-up desire and frustration poured into that moment, making the kiss deeper, more passionate than before. We broke apart, breathless, and Clara looked around nervously. "We can't do this here," she whispered. "Emma could come back any moment." I nodded, knowing she was right, but the thought of waiting any longer was unbearable. "Meet me tonight," I suggested, "at the park by the river. It's quiet and no one will see us." Clara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, I'll be there." The hours dragged by as I waited for night to fall. I could hardly concentrate on anything else, my mind consumed by the anticipation of seeing Clara again. When the time finally came, I told Emma I was going for a walk to clear my head. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek, completely unaware of my true intentions. I arrived at the park just as the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water. Clara was already there, standing by the edge of the river, her silhouette outlined against the fading light. She turned as she heard my footsteps, and the smile that spread across her face made my heart skip a beat. "Alex," she said softly, moving towards me, "I've been waiting for this all day." I took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine. "Me too," I admitted. "I can't keep pretending that this doesn't mean anything." We walked along the riverbank, the sound of the water providing a soothing backdrop to our conversation. We talked about everything and nothing, our words a thin veil over the palpable tension between us. Finally, we found a secluded spot beneath a large oak tree and sat down on the grass. Clara turned to me, her eyes searching mine. "Alex, we need to be honest with each other. What do we want from this? Where do we go from here?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I want to be with you, Clara. I know it's complicated and wrong, but the way I feel about you, it's unlike anything I've ever felt before." She smiled, a mixture of relief and sadness in her eyes. "I feel the same way. But we have to be careful. We can't let this destroy everything we've built with Emma." I nodded, understanding the gravity of our situation. "We'll be careful, but I can't stay away from you, not anymore." The next few moments were a blur of emotion. Clara leaned in, her lips finding mine in a kiss that was both tender and urgent. Our hands explored each other with a newfound intimacy, the touch of her skin sending shivers down my spine. It was as if all the longing and desire that had been building up between us was finally being unleashed. We spent the next hour in a whirlwind of passion, our kisses growing more intense, our touches more daring. The reality of our situation faded into the background, leaving only the overwhelming need to be close to each other. We were lost in the moment, consumed by the fire that had been ignited between us. When we finally pulled back, breathless and disheveled, the night had fully descended. The park was quiet, the only sounds the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of the city. Clara rested her head on my shoulder, her fingers tracing patterns on my arm. "We have to be careful," she whispered again. "But I don't regret this, Alex. Not for a second." I kissed the top of her head, my heart swelling with a mixture of love and fear. "Neither do I. We'll find a way to make this work. We have to." As we sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, I knew that our journey was only beginning. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges and heartache, but the connection we shared was too powerful to ignore. We had taken the first steps into uncharted territory, and there was no turning back. The days that followed were a delicate dance of secrets and stolen moments. Clara and I had to navigate our intense attraction while maintaining a facade of normalcy around Emma. Each interaction with her felt like walking a tightrope, balancing our burgeoning relationship with the responsibilities and commitments of our existing lives. It was a Saturday afternoon when Clara suggested we meet at a nearby bookstore. It was our favorite spot, a cozy little place filled with the scent of old paper and leather bindings. Emma was visiting her parents for the weekend, giving us a rare opportunity to spend time together without the constant fear of being discovered. I arrived early, my heart pounding with anticipation. The bookstore was quiet, with only a few patrons browsing the shelves. I found a secluded corner in the fiction section and waited, my mind racing with thoughts of Clara. When she finally walked in, I felt a surge of excitement and relief wash over me. Clara's eyes lit up when she saw me, and she made her way over with a smile that sent my heart racing. "Alex," she greeted softly, her voice a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. "I've missed you." "I've missed you too," I admitted, taking her hand and squeezing it gently. "It's been torture, trying to act normal around Emma." She nodded, her expression mirroring my own turmoil. "I know, but we're here now, and we have to make the most of it." We spent the next hour browsing the shelves, our conversation flowing easily as we discussed our favorite books and authors. It was a welcome distraction from the tension that had been building between us, a reminder of the bond that had brought us together in the first place. But even as we talked about literature, the undercurrent of desire was impossible to ignore. Finally, we found ourselves in a quiet corner of the bookstore, hidden from view by towering shelves of books. Clara turned to me, her eyes dark with longing. "Alex, I can't keep pretending. I need you." Her words sent a jolt of electricity through me, and I pulled her into a kiss that was both desperate and passionate. Our surroundings faded into the background as we lost ourselves in each other, our hands exploring with a hunger that had been building for weeks. The sound of footsteps approaching brought us back to reality, and we quickly pulled apart, trying to compose ourselves. A young couple walked past, oblivious to the intensity of the moment they had interrupted. Clara and I exchanged a knowing glance, our shared secret binding us even closer. "Let's get out of here," I whispered, taking her hand. "I can't wait any longer." She nodded, and we made our way out of the bookstore, our fingers intertwined. We walked in silence, the tension between us growing with each step. The park where we had met before was too public, too risky. Instead, we found a quiet side street and ducked into a small alleyway, hidden from prying eyes. As soon as we were alone, the dam of restraint broke, and we were on each other, our kisses urgent and demanding. Clara's hands roamed my body, and I shivered at her touch, the thrill of our forbidden connection overwhelming my senses. My hands found the small of her back, pulling her closer, needing to feel her against me. "Alex," she moaned softly, her breath hot against my ear. "I need you so much." "I need you too," I whispered back, my voice thick with desire. "More than anything." We knew we had to be quick, the risk of being discovered adding an edge to our passion. Clara's hands fumbled with my shirt, and I helped her, desperate to feel her skin against mine. The cool air of the alleyway was a stark contrast to the heat between us, and every touch, every kiss, felt like a spark igniting a wildfire. Our movements were hurried, but filled with a tenderness that spoke to the depth of our feelings. Clara's fingers traced the lines of my muscles, her touch sending shivers down my spine. I kissed her neck, her collarbone, every inch of skin I could reach, each kiss a silent promise of my devotion. Finally, our bodies came together in a rush of heat and urgency. The world around us faded away, leaving only the intense connection between us. Every movement, every touch, was a testament to the passion we shared, a release of the tension that had been building for so long. When it was over, we held each other tightly, our breathing ragged and our hearts pounding. The reality of what we had done began to seep in, but neither of us spoke, content to simply be in each other's arms for a few stolen moments. Clara was the first to break the silence, her voice a soft whisper against my ear. "We have to be careful, Alex. We can't let this ruin our lives." "I know," I replied, kissing the top of her head, "but I can't stay away from you, not now." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and fear. "We'll find a way to make this work. We have to." As we made our way back to the main street, our fingers intertwined, I couldn't help but feel a sense of both dread and exhilaration. The path we had chosen was fraught with danger and heartache, but the bond we shared was too powerful to ignore. We were in uncharted territory, and the only thing certain was our need for each other. The rest of the day passed in a haze of stolen glances and secret touches, each one a reminder of the passion that had ignited between us. As night fell and we parted ways, I knew that our journey was far from over. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but the connection we shared was worth every risk. We had crossed a line and there was no turning back. The tension between Clara and me reached its peak in the weeks that followed. Every glance, every touch, every secret rendezvous only intensified the longing we felt for each other. We were living on the edge, our passion threatening to spill over and expose our forbidden relationship. The stakes were high, but the connection we shared was too strong to deny. One evening, Emma had to work late, leaving me alone at home. Clara and I seized the opportunity to meet. We decided on a more private setting this time, a secluded cabin on the outskirts of town that Clara's friend had lent her. It was the perfect hideaway, far from prying eyes and the constraints of our everyday lives. I arrived at the cabin first, the setting sun casting long shadows across the wooden porch. The air was crisp, the scent of pine trees and earth filling my lungs as I waited for Clara. When she finally arrived, my heart leaped at the sight of her. She was a vision of elegance and desire, her eyes reflecting the same longing I felt. "Alex," she breathed as she stepped into my arms. "I've been counting the minutes." "Me too," I replied, pulling her close and kissing her deeply. The world seemed to fall away as our lips met, our bodies molding together in a dance of passion and need. We moved inside, the door closing behind us with a soft click. The cabin was cozy and warm, the flickering fire casting a soft glow over the room. We wasted no time, our hands exploring each other with a hunger that had been building for weeks. Clara's touch was electrifying, every caress sending shivers down my spine. We made our way to the bedroom, shedding our clothes along the way. The anticipation was almost unbearable, every second feeling like an eternity. When we finally came together, it was with a fervor that took my breath away. Our movements were desperate and raw, driven by the need to be as close as possible. Clara's skin was soft and warm beneath my hands, her body responding to my every touch. Our breaths mingled, our hearts pounding in unison as we gave ourselves over to the moment. The intensity of our passion was overwhelming, a perfect storm of desire and emotion. As we moved together, it felt as if the world had shrunk to just the two of us, everything else fading into oblivion. Every kiss, every touch was a declaration of the love and need we had for each other. The sensation of Clara's body against mine, her whispers of desire in my ear, it was all consuming. Finally, the tension that had been building for so long reached its breaking point, and we were swept away in a wave of ecstasy. The release was powerful, leaving us breathless and trembling in each other's arms. We held on tightly, our bodies entwined as we rode out the storm together. In the quiet aftermath, we lay tangled in each other's arms, the fire casting a warm glow over us. Clara rested her head on my chest, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on my skin. I could feel her heart beating in time with mine, the connection between us stronger than ever. "Alex," she whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of contentment and longing. "I don't want this to end." "Neither do I replied, kissing the top of her head. "But we have to be careful. We can't let this destroy our lives." She sighed, her breath warm against my skin. "I know, but sometimes I wish we could just run away and start over, just the two of us." The thought was tempting, but I knew it wasn't practical. We had responsibilities, lives that would be shattered if our secret came to light. "We'll find a way, Clara. We have to." As we lay there, the weight of our situation settled over us. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with potential heartbreak and danger, but the bond we shared was too powerful to ignore. We had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. The next morning, we woke up wrapped in each other's arms, the sunlight streaming through the window. The reality of our situation loomed over us, but for a few precious moments, we were just two people in love, free from the constraints of the outside world. Clara stirred, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of love and fear. "What happens now, Alex?" I took a deep breath, knowing that the answer wasn't simple. "We keep going, Clara. We find a way to be together, even if it's just in stolen moments like this. She nodded, her fingers tracing the lines of my face. I'll take whatever time I can get with you, Alex. I love you. I love you too, I replied, my heart aching with the weight of our reality. We'll make this work, somehow. As we dressed and prepared to return to our lives, the sense of impending danger was palpable. We knew that every moment we spent together was a risk, but it was a risk we were willing to take. The connection we shared was too powerful to ignore, too precious to let go. Leaving the cabin, we shared one last lingering kiss, a promise of our commitment to each other. As we drove back to town, the road ahead seemed both daunting and hopeful. The path we had chosen was fraught with challenges, but the love and desire we felt for each other made it worth every risk. We had reached the climax of our journey, the point of no return. The future was uncertain, but the bond we shared was unbreakable. We were in uncharted territory, and the only thing we could rely on was each other. And as long as we had that, we knew we could face whatever came our way. The weeks that followed our intense night at the cabin were a whirlwind of emotions and clandestine meetings. Clara and I were consumed by our passion, finding solace in each other amidst the growing tension. But the reality of our situation began to weigh heavily on us, the guilt and fear becoming harder to ignore. Emma started to notice my distraction. She asked if everything was all right, her concern genuine and piercing. Each time she looked into my eyes, I felt a pang of guilt that threatened to unravel everything. I loved Emma, and the thought of hurting her was unbearable. Yet the connection I shared with Clara was undeniable, pulling me deeper into a web of desire and deceit. One evening, Clara and I met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. It was a quiet place, tucked away from the prying eyes of our community. As we sat across from each other, the gravity of our situation hung heavily in the air. "Alex," Clara began, her voice trembling slightly, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about what we're doing." I reached across the table and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I have too, Clara. This isn't sustainable. We can't keep living like this." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know, but I don't know how to stop. I love you, Alex, more than I ever thought possible." "I love you too," I replied, my heart aching. "But we have to think about Emma. She doesn't deserve this. She trusts us." Clara's tears spilled over and she quickly wiped them away. "I hate that we're hurting her. I never wanted this to happen, but I can't bear the thought of losing you." The intensity of her emotions mirrored my own. We were caught between our love for each other and our responsibility to Emma. It was a cruel irony, loving two people in such different but equally powerful ways. "We need to find a way to move forward," I said softly, "to find some kind of resolution that doesn't destroy everything." Clara took a deep breath, her eyes searching mine. "Maybe we need to take a step back to give ourselves some space to think clearly." The thought of being apart from Clara was unbearable, but I knew she was right. We needed to regain control of our emotions and our lives. "You're right," I agreed reluctantly. "We need to be smart about this." For the next few weeks, Clara and I limited our interactions to the bare minimum. It was excruciating, the longing for her presence a constant ache. I threw myself into work and tried to focus on my relationship with Emma, hoping to mend the growing rift between us. Emma, oblivious to the true nature of my turmoil, welcomed the renewed attention. We spent more time together, rekindling the intimacy that had waned over the past few months. I felt a deep sense of guilt every time she smiled at me, knowing the secret I was hiding from her. One evening, Emma and I attended a friend's party. It was a lively gathering, filled with laughter and music. Clara was there too, her presence a constant reminder of the life I was trying to compartmentalize. We exchanged polite greetings, careful to keep our distance and maintain the facade. As the night wore on, I found myself watching Clara from across the room. She was talking to a group of friends, her laughter ringing out above the noise. The sight of her, so vibrant and full of life, made my heart ache with longing. Emma noticed my distraction and gently tugged on my arm. "Are you all right, Alex? You seem a little out of it tonight." I forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil inside me. "I'm fine, just tired, I guess." She leaned in and kissed me softly. "Let's get out of here then. We can go home and relax." I nodded, grateful for the excuse to leave. As we made our way to the door, I caught Clara's eye. She gave me a small, sad smile, and I felt a pang of regret. The distance between us was necessary, but it was also tearing me apart. At home, Emma and I settled into our usual routine. We talked about the party, laughed about old memories, and eventually found ourselves in each other's arms. But even in those intimate moments, my mind wandered to Clara, the memory of our passion a constant shadow. The days turned into weeks, and the distance between Clara and me remained. It was a painful but necessary separation, giving us both the space to reflect on our situation. I tried to focus on my relationship with Emma, but the pull towards Clara never fully diminished. One afternoon, as I was leaving work, I received a text from Clara. "Can we talk? I need to see you." My heart raced as I read her message. We had avoided direct contact for so long, but the urgency in her words was impossible to ignore. I agreed to meet her at a small park where we could talk privately. When I arrived, Clara was already there, sitting on a bench beneath a large oak tree. She looked up as I approached, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Alex," she began, standing up to face me, "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us, about Emma, about everything." I took her hands in mine, feeling the familiar warmth of her touch. "Me too, Clara. This separation has been torture, but it's given me time to reflect." She nodded, her eyes searching mine. "I don't want to lose you, Alex, but we can't keep living in this limbo. We need to make a decision." The weight of her words settled over me, the gravity of our situation clearer than ever. We were at a crossroads, and the choice we made would define our future. "I love you, Clara," I said softly, "but we have to be honest with ourselves. We can't keep deceiving Emma. It's not fair to her." Tears welled up in Clara's eyes, and she squeezed my hands tightly. "I know, and I can't bear the thought of hurting her any more than we already have." We stood there in silence for a few moments, the enormity of our decision hanging in the air. Finally, Clara took a deep breath and looked up at me. "We need to end this, Alex. As much as it hurts, it's the only way to do the right thing." My heart ached at her words, but I knew she was right. The path we had chosen was unsustainable, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. "I agree," I said, my voice trembling. "We need to let each other go, for Emma's sake and for our own." Clara nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I love you, Alex, but this is the end." We embraced one last time, holding each other tightly, as if trying to imprint the memory of our connection into our minds. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with love and regret. As we pulled apart, I knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with healing and redemption. Walking away from Clara was one of the hardest things I had ever done. The bond we shared was powerful, but the consequences of our actions were too great to ignore. We had to find a way to move forward, to rebuild our lives and mend the wounds we had caused. As I returned home to Emma, I resolved to be the husband she deserved. The road ahead would be difficult, but I was determined to make amends and find a way to heal the rift between us. The affair with Clara had changed me, but it had also taught me the value of honesty and the importance of the commitments I had made. We had reached the decoupling, the painful separation that was necessary for us to move forward. The future was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, determined to build a better, more honest life for myself and for Emma. Months passed since Clara and I had parted ways. The initial pain of our separation gradually eased, replaced by a sense of resolve and determination. I threw myself into my relationship with Emma, desperate to make up for the deception and to rebuild the trust I had shattered. Emma noticed the change in me. She appreciated my renewed attention and effort, but there was a lingering wariness in her eyes, a shadow of doubt that I couldn't quite erase. I knew it would take time, perhaps a lifetime, to fully mend the damage I had caused. Clara and I maintained our distance, though occasionally our paths crossed at family gatherings and events. Each time we exchanged polite greetings, the memory of our affair hung between us like an unspoken secret. We had both agreed to move on, to focus on our respective lives and the people we loved, but the connection we shared was something neither of us could completely forget. One crisp autumn day, Emma and I decided to take a weekend trip to the countryside. We needed a break from the routine, a chance to reconnect away from the distractions of daily life. The drive was peaceful, the scenery a beautiful blur of red and gold leaves. We arrived at a charming bed and breakfast nestled in the hills, its quaint facade promising a weekend of relaxation and intimacy. As we settled into our room, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. This trip was an opportunity to rebuild the foundation of our relationship, to find our way back to each other. That evening, we dined at a cozy restaurant nearby, the flickering candlelight casting a warm glow over Emma's face. She looked beautiful, her smile genuine and her laughter infectious. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace, a glimmer of the happiness we once shared. After dinner, we took a stroll through the town, the cool air invigorating and refreshing. Emma slipped her hand into mine, and I squeezed it gently, grateful for her presence and her willingness to forgive. "Alex," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've been through." I turned to face her, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. "Me too, Emma. I know I've made mistakes, and I want to do everything I can to make things right." She looked into my eyes, her gaze searching and intense. "I appreciate everything you've done to show me that you care, but I need to know that we can move forward, that we can trust each other completely." I took a deep breath, my heart aching with the weight of her words. "Emma, I promise you that I'm committed to making this work. I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to put in the effort every single day." She smiled, a glimmer of tears in her eyes. "I love you too, Alex, and I believe in us. Let's make a fresh start here and now." We sealed our promise with a kiss, the warmth of her lips a balm to my soul. As we continued our walk hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The future was uncertain, but I was determined to face it with honesty and commitment. Back at the bed and breakfast, we curled up together on the porch, a blanket wrapped around us as we watched the stars. The night was clear and still, the vast expanse of the sky a reminder of the endless possibilities ahead. "Emma," I said softly, my voice filled with emotion, "thank you for giving me a second chance. I won't let you down." She rested her head on my shoulder, her breath warm against my neck. "I know you won't, Alex. We're in this together, no matter what." As we sat there, wrapped in each other's embrace, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The journey had been tumultuous, filled with mistakes and heartache, but it had also brought us closer together. We had weathered the storm, and now we were stronger for it. The affair with Clara had been a defining chapter in my life, a test of my values and my commitment. It had shown me the importance of honesty and the power of love. Clara and I had chosen to part ways, to honor the relationships we had built and the people we cared about. It was a painful but necessary decision, one that had ultimately led to healing and growth. In the months that followed, Emma and I continued to rebuild our relationship. There were challenges, moments of doubt and fear, but we faced them together, with open hearts and minds. The trust we had once taken for granted was slowly restored, and our love deepened with each passing day. Clara and I maintained a respectful distance, our interactions cordial but distant. I occasionally saw her at family gatherings, and while the memory of our affair lingered, it no longer held the same power over me. We had both moved on, finding peace in the choices we had made. As time went on, the wounds began to heal, leaving behind scars that served as reminders of our journey. The love I shared with Emma was stronger than ever, forged in the fires of trial and tribulation. We had faced the storm and emerged on the other side united and resilient. Life continued with its ups and downs, joys and sorrows. Emma and I embraced each moment, grateful for the love that had endured. We built a future together, one filled with hope and promise, knowing that we had overcome the greatest test of our relationship. Looking back, I realized that the affair with Clara had been a turning point, a moment of reckoning that had forced me to confront my deepest desires and fears. It had been a painful journey, but it had also led me to a place of honesty and authenticity. I had learned the value of commitment, the importance of trust, and the power of love. As Emma and I sat on that porch watching the stars and dreaming of the future, I knew that we had found our way back to each other. The road ahead was uncertain, but we were ready to face it together, hand in hand, hearts united. The affair was behind us, a chapter closed, and we looked forward to the next adventure, with love as our guiding star.